Okay, what's up, everyone? We are live. So, welcome to this Agent Intelligent episode. We're exploring everything AI agents from kind of like infra to everything Web3. We're like kind of like kicking off with a lot of kind of like thought leaders, builders of agents, like strong founders, kind of like shaping the narrative. I'm Francesco. I'm contributing to ModderDAO, and I'm also like leading developer relation at Consensus. And today we're diving into the technology and the vision behind AEY Studio. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you here. I mentioned before, you're one of the first kind of like builder, founder, kind of thought leader in the gaming agent kind of like space, and especially on the game side. So, welcome. It's an honor to have you here. You want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you, Francesco. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I think this is a rare sight to, basically talk to people who like actively, look and find like builders in the space to interview them and do a podcast with them. So kudos to you. Thank you very much. Yeah, and as you've mentioned, my name
Pleasure.
is Mark. I'm a co-founder at AY Studios, where we refer to ourselves as building Web3, like AI native Web3 games. That's kind of like the mantra that we're telling ourselves. To make it like super simple, we are building AI NPCs, so we really want to bring in-game characters to life. And there's like several ways to approach it. We actually participated in like many hackathons to see what we can build from the ground up real quick in the space, and that's how like we found that many solutions for the AI NPCs work, many do not, at least from our perspective. So I'm very excited to talk about those and yeah, answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, no, sounds good. I think like we should definitely follow the flow. I'm definitely like eager to understand what you guys should be building, especially the kind of like the agent slash AI intersection with the game. I think that's super interesting, especially when I was kind of like playing out with on-chain games. I mean, of course, I was trying to do like more on-chain kind of like wallet
Yeah.
interaction. So like kind of this kind of abstracting the way. I think also like the agent could help a lot, a specialized agent for that. But let's actually like dive a little bit higher level. Like, so what kind of like were the problems that you were trying to kind of like to solve with building this game, but also implementing this AI agentic side in the game specifically?
Yeah, so I always thought about our game that we're building currently, which is this Vampire Survivors type of roguelite game called Mayhem, as more of a canvas for the agents to kind of like, so for us, we can feel like what they would like to be working with the games, right? So it's more like the game serving as a tool for the agents to kind of like show their capabilities. And and when we started working on that, we had several directions that we could basically take this. So many problems in the gaming industry, kind of present. The first one being, how can we make basically NPC characters come more alive? I didn't really feel like that's the path we should take because I played Baldur's Gate 3 and I felt like all the NPC characters, even though scripted, they like really are being built into the game. They build the relationships with the players. They like have their own quests, etc. So I didn't really feel like the dynamic like quest providing is something where AI agents could really shine. So we kind of didn't want to go down that road. But what I felt like was really interesting is where agents as part of the game as NPCs can grow beyond the game, so kind of like talk to players outside of the game experience itself. Obviously there is this road or like path that you can take where the AI agents actually play the game for you. That's also not something that I would have wanted. I love
Mhm.
games where there's like the idle fighter games or like strategy games where it makes sense to include AI agents like that. But for us, out of these three paths, we just took the one where we can see how agents can go beyond the game. So the vision there was: is it possible for us to build one of like to build an agent that grows
Mhm.
beyond the game, and it can be the game's own influencer, so kind of like the KOL that the game's kind
Mm.
of
Cool.
like builds or like breeds itself. It's kind of like because like look at all the
Nice.
perspectives.
Yep.
Like what are the problems if you go to a KOL or like an influencer? They will need to know more about the game. They will need to be able to play the game. They just need to do all this, like you have to
Mhm.
brief them, etc. If
Of
they get
course.
bored of it, or if you're not like paying more, they just leave the game. Obviously there is always like exceptions, and like obviously not everybody, but it's just a general thing. Like that's how you make money as an influencer, to like promote products. And we felt like
Yes.
maybe there is a way for us to build this like sentient being in the game that can actually fulfill that job. So while it's a playable
Hmm.
character, it can also promote itself on Twitter, or talk to people on Telegram. So like
Nice.
combine that, and I feel like that's something that's been missing from like the gaming industry, where there's a lot
Oh,
of monetization, marketing opportunities here that you can basically just automate. But for some reason, like nobody seems to be doing it, because everybody is kind of like working with like the AI NPCs, and like like let's have the AI play the game.
yes.
And I feel like there's this middle road where like monetization and marketing are always bottlenecks. It doesn't matter who you are. Like it doesn't matter if you're the best developer, if you can like build the best
Yes.
games, etc. You have to show it to people, because it's a very very competitive scene. Web3, Web2 alike. And our thesis, as I've said, the vision is like, what if you can actually build your own in-game characters that can be used to promote the game
Mhm.
itself through their personalities and through like tools that
Yes.
you're giving them. So that's where what we kind of like set out to do, and that's what we are building right now in like first
Very
version Anime
cool.
Mayhem. Yeah.
Actually, I think this is also a big pain points that even like streamers, gamers, as it like in terms of like distribution. Because if I'm thinking about like even writers, like book writers, authors, like they always try to say, okay, let me actually write something and create value. But distributing value is something like kind of a pain point. But I think also for gaming, it actually make totally sense. Also like updating your community automatically through the agent. So I kind of like this division between kind of like the gamer, the streamer, and the marketer. I think that might play a big role because I think like the streaming industry for gamers is huge, and a lot of people are actually like in top leaderboards, but are not actually like being able to how do you say like kind of like branding themselves inside the gaming community
Yes.
apart the specific gamer. So actually, and the platform are changing so fast also. Like I feel like streaming games like in some platform after like maybe 6 months you have another kind of thing and you need to kind of create some new content. So I think like you kind of like said it all. Like walk us through a little bit this kind of like game functionality or like kind of the verticals. I think like if you want to screen share, if you want to kind of like show us something, like please feel free to
Okay,
do it.
right. Yeah. So I just have this prepared for you, for the sake of the
Nice.
conversation. So this is like a cool summary slide of what Anime Ham looks like right now. So
Oh,
as I
nice.
mentioned, the game itself is more of a canvas for the agents and not the other way around. So it was like we had this idea or vision for the agents first, and then we had to like pick a genre and find a genre that could really like showcase the capabilities. So what we did here with Anime Ham is, obviously all of us on the team are super huge anime fans. So I think the kind of like the art style and the
Mhm.
direction was a given. And then we found that through web technologies we can reach the most people, which gives us like the most kind of the biggest sandbox to experiment with. So Anime Ham is a web-based game, and the question was like, what does like how to integrate these agents into the game itself, so they are not like, it's like they seem like incompetent or like incompatible with the game itself. And the idea came where it's like, okay, why don't we build a game that's like Vampire Survivors, but instead of having the main character or like the player upgrade weapons and collect chests and
Mhm.
etc., we just give them companions, and these companions
Mm.
basically just give the player their powers. So the player will need to interact with the companions in the game itself as well
Mm.
as outside of the game. So now Anime Mayhem is basically about you playing one character, and as you upgrade, as you grow, as you get experience, you'll get to recruit more and more companions, 5 in total for each run.
Mhm.
And we don't want to overwhelm people, because of course it's a web-based game and it's a single player title, so we didn't want to overrun people. And that's why you have like 10 minutes runs, etc. And during those runs you upgrade your companions, and you fight with them, etc. And the cool thing about this is that these companions actually gain experience with the player, similarly to how like it would work in like a Baldur's Gate 3 title, where companions get more used to the player. We actually have companion NFTs where the players can basically just collect reputation, and this reputation is being put on chain. So if you want to like
Mhm.
sell like a level 5 reputation NFT with a given companion because it's very strong, then you can feel free to do so, and another player can continue where you
Mhm.
left off. So I feel like there's a lot of experimental things in this kind of game that we're building. That's why the game had to be very simple and understandable and like familiar for players.
Hmm.
And the agents are basically just building the unique part of it. And this kind of element of monetizing the relationship between players and AI agents is something that I'm very, very interested to explore more of. And yeah, that's what Anime Mayhem is about.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. I mean, that's very cool actually. And you guys build already kind of like the kind of the infra side. I definitely want to go also like deeper on this, like maybe on the technical kind of like conversation because so what do you think is the kind of the state right now on the agent side and tooling for gamers too? Is do you think are we there
Um,
or
Not yet. I mean, there is a lot of providers for infrastructure. So it was always a question to us, even from like investors and other people, is like, do you guys want to build infrastructure or do you guys want to build content? And I always vote for
mm,
the latter, right? So like we are a content company basically because we want to develop games that where AI agents are kind of like a native part of the experience and not like the other way around where it's like it's just a game and we force AI agents into it because it sounds cool, right? Or we didn't want to be an infrastructure company, and that's simply because we felt like first we need to prove to players, regardless how they think about themselves, like web 2 players or web 3 players or whatever, they just think of themselves as we play video games. But anyway, so we need to prove first how AI agents can be really, really useful in the games themselves. And then maybe if it turns out that we're on the right track and, this is something that players are interested in, we get, like the daily active, the monthly active user numbers, we hit our KPIs, etc. Maybe that's when we would kind of like become this infrastructure company where maybe the infrastructure that we've built for our agents could be useful for other games to use
mhm,
as well. So we kind of like, think about this, the infrastructure versus content this way. I think what's really
mhm,
hard as a
mhm.
builder in the space to really just pick the partner that you want to
Mhm.
work with. So you have like, you have LangChain, you have LangGraph, you have Aliza OS, you have
Yes.
like Relevance.ai, you have I don't know, Flow, you have Amazon Web
Mhm,
Services, like
mhm.
you have Microsoft, like you just have like you can just go to the OpenAI and use that ChatGPT for everything.
Yes.
So every single one of these providers have their own, capabilities, uniqueness, and something that they can help with. So for example, for us, the infrastructure was the hardest part because I'm very, very
Mm,
picky on how the agents sound and how they talk to players. And that's what the
yes.
hardest part to achieve is because um, first, when we picked, like let's one provider, it would enable the agents to know everything about the game, like enemy types and like
Mhm.
whatever players were asking about. It's like an FAQ, but it would lack the personality, and it
Yes.
doesn't make sense for us to build something without a personality if we want it to be like its own kind of like influencer or in its own like promoter or something. Because for marketing purposes, for influencer purposes, you have to have your own kind of like unique personality that you use to speak to
Mm,
people or talk to like everybody, talk to your audience. And those earlier versions of Anime Mayhem's agents, they didn't have that. They just knew about the game, they knew how the players behaved, but they had like zero unique personality. So we had to switch out
yes.
constantly from infrastructure that kind of like provided a knowledge base, but the knowledge base was so much weight into like the agent's like actual knowledge that it would also
Mhm.
influence his personality, so it would become like this very dry personality.
Mm,
And then we found that maybe
mm,
like we have to kind of like build different agents, like micro agents, even because agents are like micro enough, but in some cases it's like
yes.
one agent that's responsible for the personality, and the other agents kind of like just feeding information into it. And the if the task of the latest, or like the last agent that is between the player and the game, is to transform whatever information it's received into this very unique, through this very unique personality, like filter through the personality. And that's when it can become really like something that's personalized, that doesn't sound very robotic, and it actually sounds like something out of the game itself. So I feel like we found this very interesting combination through utilizing like LangGraph and some AWS services for
Mhm.
indexing, etc. But everybody has to kind of
Nice.
like go through this path themselves, depending on your business goals or game goals and needs, right? So in some cases, for
Yeah.
example, if you
Yeah.
just build like robots, obviously our enemies here are robots as well. But if you're not looking for this
Yeah.
like very personalized experience, if you're just looking for like an FAQ, like an agent that can just answer questions or do customer service, you might not need a heavyweight personality like we do, because we need like six different personalities because of the characters, right? So infrastructure is very, very interesting. It's being built very rapidly. I think we're just like,
Hmm.
basically looking left and right all the time. Like every day a new thing comes out. Everybody's working on it. And I really appreciate all the builders in the
Yes.
space. All the infrastructure builders are super cool people. And it's
Yeah.
just, but yeah, we just have to find something that fits our goals. And yeah, in some cases there's nothing that fits our goals, in which case we have to dig deeper into all our
Build
developer
in house. Yeah.
resources, and we figure something out ourselves. So it's always part of the game,
Yeah.
because I mean, no matter where you look at this from, right? It's like you and us and everybody who's probably listening to this podcast, we're working on the cutting edge of the space, right?
Yes.
So that's
100%.
what I mean, like
Yeah. Yeah.
crypto.
I mean, it's good. Yeah. I really like you push some kind of like lesson learned here. I want to actually ask you on that. But before actually asking you to the lesson learned, like you touch a little bit on the challenges, maybe on, for example, on the lang chain, on the tooling side, things that are not compatible. Maybe you need to build
Yeah.
stuff and gaps that you need to build in house after. What other like challenges that you will say that you guys faced? And maybe even what some of surprises that you say, oh shit, like this is something that I was never expecting, or hey, this was a big challenge that I underestimated, because a lot of kind of like builders out there are listening to us. Like, is there kind of like lesson learned there, or just challenges that you face
Yeah,
first?
I do think that, I mean, it kind of like comes with the fact that you're building an AI native game or like an AI game, but monetization has to be thought of first before everything else, I feel like. And that's because even to
Mm,
use any of the models that I just mentioned, even if you're just utilizing ChatGPT with like limited resources or something, you're paying for it from the first conversation that any user has, right? It doesn't matter, like, and you have to scale quickly. What if your game becomes really popular and you have like 10,000 people talking to your agents, and like those 1 cent or 2 cents or like whatever tenth of a cent, they add up rather quickly, right? And if you don't monetize
yes.
from the ground up, then you'll feel like you're just paying these people or these agents to talk to these players, but they don't give any value, right? So I feel like AI or like
Hmm.
agentic games will redefine what it means to be like a premium game, because you might need to pay in front. It's like, as with any premium game, you might need to constantly pay for a game to be able to for you to be able to play it, right? So it's kind of there where it's like,
Yes.
I mean, as I mentioned before, monetizing the relationship with like an agent, it has to happen because it costs you for players to talk to agents. It doesn't matter, like nobody's going to give you like, obvious, there are some fee credits that you can use, of course. But if you don't start thinking about it and your game starts to scale, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that it happens to everyone, building any type of game. But if it happens and you're not prepared to kind of like understand how you can charge your users, then you just like you'll be
Hmm.
like out of pocket much faster than like right now, right? Because right now, if you're not using any like
100%.
AI agent games, you just build a free to play game. People start using it. You have some server costs that incur, etc. Like, hopefully you're not like building a multiplayer game, but those costs can be obviously like much higher. Here, even if you're a
Hmm.
solo dev building an AI game, you can pay a lot of money, and just realizing maybe people don't even want to pay for your
Hmm.
stuff. So I feel like that's a very, very important lesson that we have to kind of like open a conversation about.
Yes.
Maybe it's a different type of monetization that we need to do for agentic games. I feel like there's a lot of solutions
Hmm.
that crypto provides. So, which is why we're doing this agentic
Hmm.
NFTs. Maybe a person
Yes.
who paid a lot for the conversation with their agents want to sell that relationship, and
Hmm.
then through an NFT sale, they can do that too. So that's maybe like one
That's
solution,
very
yeah.
cool. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's something that maybe has to be like a discussion among any games, any developer, anyone who's basically building a game where AI agent interactions are like one of the main things that you want to give to players.
Nice. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And any on the other side, any kind of like surprises that made you say, "Oh, that's super interesting," like during the kind of like development on the kind of the agent
Right.
integration?
I feel like I get surprised every day, and that's because
I know
as
what you mean. I mean, tooling is
it's
expanding its
yes, it,
evolution
it
so
is. It's
fast.
like,
Yeah.
so I feel like one of the first surprises that we had was when we started first establishing the personalities of the companions. And we had this
Hmm.
question of like, but how can we make them kind of like come alive? It's like, in comic books,
Mm.
it's easy for them because they have the visuals. In, like anime or manga books, they also, visuals they have. So what is the type of conversation that you're reading? And what are the things that you need to read about or that you need to read to kind of like understand how the person you're talking to behaves? Because if it was us, like me
Mm.
chatting with you or texting you, I would just use smileys,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
stuff
Hmm.
like that. So we tried that, but it was
Mm.
very crappy. It's like the companions
Mm.
started sending like waves and like weird smileys, like it wasn't even like in the context
Mm.
of the conversation. So we were like, maybe there's another solution. So we just started reading, like just books, like books were like purely text version of like our favorite like novels, etc. And what we realized is that
Hmm.
sometimes the author uses this italic font to kind of like explain how the character feels, kind of like like shrugging shoulders, or like maybe like tilting head, etc. So it wasn't really like, it's still a text form, but it actually
Hmm.
explains what you need to imagine this person looks like that you're talking to. So we started doing that. So now,
Mm.
if and let me just see if I can actually show that to you without hurting any of
Yeah,
the
please.
experiences. So we solved it with like
Yes.
another thing. Yeah, I mean, I think I can show this to you actually. It doesn't hurt for people to see this. So maybe it's not here as much as I want, but okay, yeah. So let me just share this real quick. So here's basically what we did is right. So we are actually doing images right now. The way these images
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
created are from those little snippets of like how the character should feel like, or what the character should feel like, and how they behave.
Mm.
So
Yes.
it's like, it's like Sanji would tell you that, oh, I'm so happy that you killed 223 robots, because obviously they can understand what's going on in the game or what your achievements were. And he would just throw up his two hands. And if it's not the picture that speaks to the players, it's actually hidden into the
Hmm.
text. It's like, okay, oh, never forget your victories. And then with italic, we would say like, and throws up his hands or something like that.
Mm.
So that really, really
Mm.
was surprising how well it was actually being handled by the agents themselves after we started paying attention to this. So we would tell them to really just, pay attention to what you're doing, and like express your feelings, express your thoughts, and use like these little hints at like what is the type of face the person that you're talking to should imagine. So that was very, very surprising to me how well it worked
Nice.
in like an AI human communication. It was so really freaking.
Yes. Actually, I think this is a good point. What you're bringing also is the way that also you consume the agent in the game specifically, right? Because I think there are different formats, and I think people are testing a lot. I'm not sure if chat kind of formats are kind of the way to go. But I think what you're showing here with actually this specific interaction, it might be also like sound interesting. There are also like a lot of like 3D avatar kind of interaction, but I'm not sure specific for like gamers and live streamer of games if this is something they want to do. I think automatization is something that is definitely necessary on the gaming side. But I mean, like this is also like the fact that I'm seeing you as kind of like the first kind of like integration to a gaming suite on the agent side is super. It telling me also like we're super early, and I think like that's why my ask also like on the tooling. Like I think they're missing a lot of tooling when you're speaking to agent kind of like social coordination even, right? But it's very exciting what you guys build because is I think is providing a lot of like solution to pain points that gamer has in order to actually like scale their I don't know their presence, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Mm.
yeah, I feel like, so why we're using text and why I feel like text is not it's underutilized a bit is because the experience itself. So what we wanted to do is
Yes.
I think if it's in game and if you want to talk to your agents in the game itself, where you're concentrating on playing the game and you want to be immersed in that experience, that's when the voice comes in, like voice communications, voice commands. Like you talking to the agent through voice and the agent talking to you through voice. So whenever you're busy with something else, voice is an experience that you cannot go around because that's what you have to use. For us, we wanted to give players something that they can engage themselves with whenever they have the time and that they can allocate.
Hmm.
So a voice conversation, or it's just what the difference is between a phone call and a message, right? So a phone call, it does not happen on your time.
Hmm.
If someone calls you, like your business partner, whoever, like unannounced, or not like a scheduled
Hmm.
meeting, it happens on their time and not yours, because they decide that they want to use
Hmm.
their time because they have free time now to call you, and you have to respond and saying like, okay, so do I have the time to talk to these people right now, or do I not have the time? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Whereas with an email or a text, you actually can respond on your own time.
Yes.
So you just receive a text, you can read it, you can do whatever you want with it. You don't need to respond right away. In a phone call, you have to respond right away. And it doesn't matter if you have the
Yes.
time or not, because you decided that you want to put your time into that phone call, but it wasn't like your decision, it was the other person who called you. With text messages, etc., it happens on
Yes.
your time, and I think that's very, very valuable, kind of, to everyone, because time is something that none of us will get more of. And if it's a game and we don't want to like bother people with like having the agents like call them or something, we want them to be able to engage with the
Yes.
agents whenever they have the time, whenever they want to put time towards it. It's not like, because like it would very much hurt the experience if you just like a constant agent presence, bugging you to come back and play the game. That's not what we want. We obviously want the agents to promote the game, to incentivize people to come and
Yes.
play. Yes, that's obviously a goal, but we have to find a way that's very relevant, and it finds them at a time when they can be actually convinced, when they actually want to come back and play. And that's why AI agents are super cool as companions, because they can have this
Mm.
many tools at their disposal to understand the context of where they can actually like get players to come back and play. And I feel like that's very important.
Nice. 100%, 100%. And I think like we're almost on time here. I just want to ask you like, so how you see this kind of like agentic game evolving? What are you guys kind of like are cooking next? They obviously you can kind of like totally before we
Right.
public.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm usually sharing whatever we have right now. I feel like the next thing that we need to
Mhm.
have is figure out a non-disturbing way of like combining a business model of like OnlyFans with free to play games a little bit, right? So like in terms
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
agents talking to players, it makes sense for players to like grow like this friendship, or like appeal towards the agents, and then they might want to send it gifts, they might want to like talk to it more a little bit, or something like that. And I feel like we need to reward that. So we are working on reward mechanisms for agents, so they can basically get players to play more, or like overcome some obstacles that might be
Mhm.
too hard for them in the game. So we introduce materials and crafting in our game, and agents can actually be convinced to send extra materials to players if you talk to them a lot more, or if you build a relationship with them. So I feel like we're cooking something that will engage people on a level where you don't might not need to play the game. You can play the meta
Nice.
game with the agents to get the materials. And some people will not even want to like bother playing the game. They just want to get agents to send them materials, and then they might want to sell those materials. So it's kind of like an interesting extra audience that can be included in the game itself. But as I said, the game is just a canvas for the agents, so we can figure out their capabilities. So that's what we're doing right now. I feel like what our game was missing so far was a lot more Web3 integration with crafting and materials, and figuring out some reward mechanisms for the agents. We're actually on the right track. And we gotta release at least like season 0 or like a beta in June, so end of June. So I'm very excited to for that to happen and see how players will behave with the agents.
Nice, nice. I mean, that's super helpful. I'm definitely
So
looking
cheers.
forward. I think we will send over some links, also like post streams, also that people can try it out. And yeah, so anything else that is exciting you right now, Mark, that you want to share, or we're good to go?
Yeah, I mean, First of all, thank you very much again for having me on this. I really appreciate it. I hope we'll get to do this some other time as well, towards like in the summer or something, when I
Yes,
can like update you with more stuff, maybe show some gameplay and show how actually
good
agents like
idea.
work. That's like volume two would be super awesome. I want to give a shout out to our team members who are working super hard to make this a reality, and to all the builders out there in the space, and obviously you guys to like keep up. And I know the markets are not very good most of the time, but this is the time to build, and we shouldn't get discouraged. So,
Oh yes.
everybody, keep building, and there's better times coming. All good.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much. I agree. Like now it's time
Exactly.
to build, right? And there is, especially on the agent side, there is a lot of like innovation happening from the framework to kind of like the depths layer side. There is a lot of things, and with modern like building social reputation around the agent, I think is key, especially on the gaming side. I think when you start to seeing more and more kind of agentic integration to games, you will ask yourself which actually like agent do I want to interact in my game. So you will actually look at the kind of
Yeah.
OG in the space, the agent that will provide the most value for those agent users. So I think that's a big topic right now. So thanks so much, Mark. Thanks so
Thank you.
much also everyone for listening. If you're right now building and having kind of like problems building a game, sorry, a game like an agent, you can actually like check out the mother. There is a specific kind of like a Discord channel for like debugging, similar to an office hour kind of things, and you can share the things out there. What else? I think we're good to go, and we'll share also some of those resources that Mark kind of like shared post stream. And until that time, I'm not sure like if we'll probably see each other in some next like
Hoping.
conference, but please keep hands off, keep cooking, and we'll probably like do a part two for the
Awesome.
updates.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, everyone. Take
Thank